Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to switch rooms here. Hold on just a second. Welcome and thanks for joining us for this CTD webinar, AT and Apps to Support Learners with Autism. Our guest speakers today are from AT for Education, Diana Petschauer and Stacy Driscoll. Today they will be discussing various apps and AT options for students with autism to foster engagement, inclusion, independence, and success in the educational environment. Please take a moment at the end of our webinar to fill out a brief survey, and you can print out a certificate of participation. I won't waste any more time, and I'll pass this off to Diana and Stacy.
Great, thank you, Anna. This is Diana Petschauer. I'm an assistive technology professional and founder of AT for Education. So hopefully my screen is being shared currently so you can see our website, atfored.com, atfored.com. So I'm a RESNA certified assistive technology professional and consultant, and we have 12 consultants who travel daily throughout New England. We provide the assistive technology assessments for students in the educational workplace and also for adults in the workplace environment. We do, of course, PD workshops, professional development workshops for staff, as well as one-to-one training for students, and we make the recommendations for assistive technology to help learners of all abilities and disabilities. And this evening or this afternoon, thank you for joining us for the apps to support learners with autism. Just switching over here to the app matrix, you did receive a link to this. And this is a matrix that has our contact information on it, myself and Stacy. You'll be meeting Stacy in just a moment. And this is a hyperlink or a bit.ly link. If you're not familiar, take a second to write it down if you'd like to. If you happen to have a phone or an iPad with you, take a picture of it because we're going to move on. But you essentially just type this link right into your URL up here, your browser, and hit enter, and you're going to get to this matrix as well. But I know that it was shared for you, and it will be shared again at the end. And I'm just going to scroll through. Hopefully I'm not making you too dizzy. I'll go back up to the link in just a moment so you can see the layout. We have the name of the app. There's a link to it on the left-hand side, the functional area that it addresses, whether or not it's available on Apple iOS for the iPad or iPhone, or whether or not it's available for Google or Android, and then some of the comments and features about the particular apps. After the iOS, we introduce some Google options towards the bottom of the matrix, and we'll be going through some of these this afternoon. And then after the apps, we also have some resources at the end of this matrix for things like locating devices and wandering prevention technology and things of that nature. So this is the handout. We certainly won't get to all of these apps, but we want to make sure that you have this information. So this is your handout. You'll have it in digital format. And again, it's nice that it's digital because then those links on the left-hand side, you can just click on them and it gets you right to the app we're talking about. Because oftentimes we recommend an app and you can't find it in the App Store, or you find 5 of them that are the exact same name. So you'll get to the one that we're specifically talking about. There's that link again. And I am going to stop sharing my screen so I can pass it over to Stacy to introduce herself and get us started this evening.
Welcome, everyone. And I also noticed, just so you all know, when I'm presenting, Diana's going to kind of keep a check on the chat bar, and while she's presenting, I will be keeping an eye on that. And Anna did put a link, so if you missed it when Diana was showing it, that link to the matrix is in the chat, so if you want to go back to that. So again, my name is Stacy Driscoll, and I am a consultant with Diana with Assistive Technology for Education. I'm a former elementary and special ed teacher. I worked in elementary and special ed for 25 years. I currently work for the New Hampshire statewide Assistive Technology Act program, and so every state has an Assistive Technology Act program. I am the program coordinator for that. I do a lot of demonstrations and device loans, as well as a lot of training and behind-the-scenes things. So I'm going to start just by quickly going to settings. So you should be seeing my iPad screen, and so I'm reflecting that. So I'm going to go down to the bottom to settings, and when I open settings, on the left-hand side, you're going to see notifications. So notifications, I'm trying to kind of use my mouse on my computer as well as using my iPad to help you keep track of where I'm at. So in notifications, it gives you every app that is on your iPad, iPhone that you have. You don't necessarily want notifications from every app that you have. And so on here, it gives you, when you download an app, it will say, do you want to allow notifications? And so most of the time I say no, because I was just like, I don't need it telling me these things all of the time. So most things I say no. But there are certain apps that you certainly are going to want to have notifications for. If there's any sort of reminder, you're going to want a notification. So I'm going to go down to and scroll down to the CanPlan app that is right here. I'm going to open that, and you can see that I have allow notifications turned off. And so I'm not currently getting any for CanPlan. Diana's going to talk about CanPlan, show you CanPlan. So that's why I'm going to turn on these notifications on my iPad. So I can slide this over and turn it on, and then I can have the option, I can show it in the notification center. So that's when you pull down from the top, you get your notifications, and your notifications could be in there. So if you want it in your notifications, you can turn the sound on. If you mute your device, even though you have the sound on, it's not going to give you the sound. So make sure you keep your sound on if you are looking for a sound notification. Then you have the badge app icon. So when you're in your home page, it would have the icon and then show on the lock screen, so that if you're just turning your device on and you want that notification there, it would be listed. But down the bottom, this is what's really important. And did I just lose the screen? Okay. So down at the bottom, I hope something just happened on my computer, so I'm hoping I'm still sharing with you. So down at the bottom here, where there are alert styles, you have three different alert styles. You can have none. So you could have your notifications turned on, but if you turn on none, it's not going to matter because it's not going to give you any notification. It might give you the sign, it may give you the sound, but if you have those sounds turned off, it's not going to help. The banner, you can see what it's doing here. It's flashing and then it goes away. Well, most of us, if we have any sort of memory or distraction, if that banner turns on and turns off, as soon as it's gone, we forget. The alerts, it actually stays on the top. In the older operating systems, it went into the middle. Now it comes at the top, but it's going to stay there until you actually dismiss it or say yes to go into the app. So this is really important when you're looking at making sure that you're getting notifications. So you're saying, well, I set a reminder, but it's not working. This might be where your issue is. So again, I'm doing it with the computer. Go back to notifications here, the blue, and then that will turn it on and you can get to all your notifications and turn those on and off. The next thing I'm going to show you before we get into the app is right under notifications, 3 under that is general. And under general, we then have accessibility. And when we turn on accessibility, these are just all of the accessibility features that you can change on the iPad that are built in. And I'm going to show you, if we scroll all the way down, is guided access. And so I've turned guided access on, so I can just slide that off and turn it back on. So that is on. I also want to show you underneath is accessibility shortcut. You want to make sure that you only have one accessibility shortcut turned on at a time, because they can get wonky and counteract each other. You can end up with guided access blocking you to get out of something else. You want to make sure that you only have the accessibility shortcut turned on for 1, and that's going to give you that you can triple click to get in and out of it instead of knowing what other gestures might work. So it's best to have that turned on. So we have guided access. So let's go into an app and turn guided access on. So I'm going to go here, and we're going to talk about Play School a little bit later, but I want to show you My Play Home. So if we open My Play Home, I get it started a little bit. And so if we go in to the house, and let's say we want the child to be playing in the bedroom alone, not to be playing in any other room. I'm going to turn the volume down on this just because there's music in the background. I'll turn it back up. All right, so I want to be able to put guided access over these arrows so that the student cannot go upstairs into the other room, downstairs. They can only play in this one room. So I'm going to triple click, 1, 2, 3. I triple clicked on my home button, and now you can see where I circled these. I'm just going to get rid of them for a second so you can see how I did this. So if I just, with my finger, circle this arrow, and circle this arrow, and circle this arrow, there, okay. So we have this covered up, and so I can even make this a little smaller if I want this on the rug. I can also turn on them in the bottom left of the hardware buttons. I can decide I want to lock these as well. I'm going to leave that as is. For the time limit, I can change and set a time limit. I can turn the time limit off, and it will turn off after that amount of time. If I do that, and then at the top right, you see where it says Start. So by hitting Start, it asks for a passcode. And so you want to set a passcode. You want to remember the passcode. So that's how it's going to get you in and out. And so now you can see I can move the dad around. I can get the baby out of the crib. I can, did I lose the sharing?
I think you did. I just saw your screen stop sharing.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that was Adobe kicking you out.
Looks like it might have been. Hang on.
Oh, here we go. I think it's coming back now.
Okay. So I can move him around. I can have the basketball. I can put it in the hoop, move everybody around. But if I want to, my finger is now on this bottom arrow. It's not doing anything because it's been grayed out. And so I could set that timer, but then this child is then stuck in here. They can't hit the home button to get out. It's just keeping them in here. You can see it says it's enabled. You need to triple click to get out. Most young children have trouble with that, plus they need to know the passcode to get out. So now I'm going to triple click, and now I need to put in the passcode. And kids are good, so and then I'm going to top left, I'm going to end. And so I am now no longer in guided access, and I can go back to my home screen. So that is how you do guided access to keep students from getting out of an app, to put a timer on an app. That will work well for those purposes. So now I'm going to hand it over to Diana to show you some apps. So I need to stop sharing.
Great, thank you. So guided access, definitely a great built-in accessibility feature on those iOS devices that you can't find on other devices other than the iPad, iPod, iPhone, etc. Really great for those button-happy students or those who want to get out to their favorite game. So I'm sharing my screen now, and I'm going to start reflecting my iPad as well to show you a few more apps here. It's very interesting when we do this because we're showing our computer screen as well as our iPad screen, and sometimes I end up touching my laptop as if it's my iPad instead of touching my iPad. So now you can see my iPad screen, and as Stacy mentioned, one of the apps that we really like is called CanPlan. While I'm reflecting my iPad, there's some apps that play nicely and others that don't. And CanPlan is one that doesn't like to be reflected. So I took some screenshots for you so you can see what it's like when you start the app and use this particular app. CanPlan, which is on your matrix, Can and Plan, is really great for sequencing of events for a particular task or activity that a student needs to do and needs to remember step by step what they need to do. So you can see some of the examples that the app starts off with, and I will just tap on Wash Clothes. And when you're in Wash Clothes, notice that you can have a photo and you can also have a video as well as the text, and it will read this out loud. You see the speak button on the bottom. It can either be a human voice, it could be the student's voice, a teacher's voice, or it can be the synthesized speech that's built into the iPad. And what you can do is take step-by-step, again, pictures or videos, which is really great, and that can be the student doing this particular activity step-by-step so that they remember what they need to do. So you can see that the text is at the bottom. It would be read out loud to them, again, human voice or synthesized voice, and step-by-step what they need to go through the steps in this particular activity. Wash clothes, maybe this one you might want for your own kids or spouse. When you are setting up an activity, you can see that you can choose a photo, and if you tap on Add Step, that's when you're going to choose the photo or video, type in the text description on the bottom, and then also tap audio if you want to record your own voice. The other great thing about CanPlan is that you can set this up so this activity is scheduled on the calendar, the built-in calendar on the iOS device or the iPad, so that if this particular student needs to wash clothes at 12 o'clock p.m., at 12 o'clock p.m., as long as you have your notifications turned on, which Stacy just showed you, that student's going to get the reminder popped up on their iPad, it's time to wash clothes, and then this is going to pop up for them to go through those steps, which is really nice. Another great app that we like is called ChoiceWorks. So ChoiceWorks starts out with some options for you to already use and edit to personalize for your student, or you can create an entire new board all on your own. On the bottom, you can see it's showing all of the boards that you have to choose from if you choose one of theirs. Again, you can create one from scratch. There are things such as schedules, weighting, and feelings, and I'll show you a couple of examples. So if we tap on My School Schedule, we can listen to all of the steps that you set up for the schedule.
My school schedule. First I need to hang up coat. Reading. Wash hands. Have a snack. Line up. Recess. Then I can blocks or Legos.
Now this particular voice is a young man's voice. Again, this can be recorded, so it can be an adult voice or an older child's voice. And nice that when you take the item to put it over and all done, you can add a video. Oops, I think I needed to tap on it first, so let me tap on the reading one first. There we go. So you can tap on the video so that they have an example of what they need to do, and then you can move it to the all done. And let me just put this one back so you can see that you can also add visual timers. And for a lot of students of all abilities, but a lot of students with autism might have a difficult time grasping the concept of time. 30 seconds means nothing to them. 1 minute, you have 2 minutes to hang up your coat, that means nothing to them. That they can have a nice visual countdown timer to see how much time they have and to follow along with that as they go through their schedule. And you can also edit this board, as I mentioned, to personalize it. So if you tap on Edit, notice that you can change any of these. You can add a timer. And if you tap, I'm going down to the bottom where it says then I can this or that, and I have blocks or Legos. If you tap on any of these, see now it says add an activity. And if I want to add an activity, I have many to choose from in their library. But if you look at the top left of this box, that's the camera. You can use the iPad to take a camera and add a photo. So these can be personal photos or videos of your particular learner. And again, that voice can be personalized as well. Let me put the blocks back in there and save that. And if we go back home, notice there's also things like waiting, why I may need to wait, and while I'm waiting, what can I do? This one, of course, is I'm waiting for 4 minutes, and we can start the timer. And while I'm waiting, I can color or do blocks. And this has a nice waiting social story. When do I wait? Why do I have to wait? And you can see that you can personalize it for adults as well or older students. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it over to Stacy to show you a few others.
Okay, I'm going to show the time timer. I don't have, Anna, I don't know if you need to do something, but I can no longer share my screen. It's up, but I have just a blank. Did you want to show FirstThen maybe, Diana, while she tries to get that?
Absolutely. I'll share my screen again because I did want to show FirstThen real quick. So we'll bring up another time schedule app rather. I'm going to bring up FirstThen visual schedule. Now many of you may be familiar with making FirstThen boards for students. First I'm going to do this and then with one particular activity or another, maybe for a schedule. You can see here when you open the FirstThen schedule app, you have some options here. Again, you can create your own boards or edit theirs. I'll open up morning school routine. Now what's nice about this is you can choose how many things the student sees at one time. So maybe they're just going to see one at a time and go through their schedule that way. On the bottom you can choose FirstThen, first the toilet, then PJs off. You can choose 3 options or up to 5 options depending on how many you have on the schedule. They also have the option for putting things in the envelope. So some of you have students that have laminated icons and when they're done they take it off that Velcro strip and put it into the envelope. So that's emulated here. And then also again moving it to the all done. For each activity you check it off when you are done. It's nice that for each of the items, if you see the little 10-minute, 2-minute, 3-minute, those were clocks before I set the timer, so that for each activity or each step in this activity, I should say, or this schedule, you can start the timer. And again, if you hit play, this is a nice visual timer. So if you watch the screen, you can see the timer start to count down from the top. So they can have this continuous timer as they go through all of the steps in this particular schedule or activity. And I was going to stop sharing again to try and pass it over to Stacy. Hopefully the administrators have it fixed so that Stacy can see this.
Yep.
Oh, looks like they're popping her in here. Great.
You're to be able to. Okay.
Great. All right.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So now I'm going to show, oops, I'm doing it again, clicking on my computer. I'm going to show the Time Timer app. And so with Time Timer, you can set multiple timers so that you can see that these are some active timers I have on the side. Top right, there are some squares. If I want to change this and have it viewed differently, we can view it this way, so that if I wanted to set the table, I can click on this one and see that I have that one, and then I can go back and do set the table. It shows us the set the table, and down at the bottom I can hit play, and so it's going to play through. I can restart it if I want. I can also swipe across if I want to see different timers that I'm using. Up at the top, not quite all the way to the left, there's a plus, and I can set with touch or set with options. So if I want to set with options, I can name the new timer, and we will call it webinar, because I'm really, so then we can say it's a 60-minute timer, or we can customize it. Maybe we only want it to be, oh, these are hours, 0 hours. I want it to be a 10-minute timer. Where's my 10 minutes? My 10-minute timer, and I'm going to save that. So this is a 10-minute timer. So as I play this, it's going to move around, and when 5 minutes has gone by, it's going to show half. And so the numbers are counting down, and for children to understand that, yes, the time is counting down, but to also understand that, oh, I'm halfway through the time I have to do something, and being able to visually see that at half. You can also customize this for color and things like that as well. The other really cool thing that I want to show you, I'm going to go out of this for a second, and I'm just going to open Google Keep. We're going to eventually look at that. If I swipe with one finger from the right of the screen, so I am swiping from over here with my finger in, and I'm going to be able to split the screen. So now you can see that I had Time Timer open, so now my Time Timer is next to my other app. This little white line here, if I pull this over, I can split the screen, and so now I can be working on something on the left, and I can be playing my timer on the right, so that the student can actually be seeing that at the same time as what they're working on. So a really good option to be able to split that screen, especially when we think about timers, and you can do this with other apps as well. So if I wanted, these are all the apps that I could open in this second side. But to be able to visually see a timer while working is very helpful for so many of our kiddos. All right, so I'm going to pull that all the way across. That Time Timer. Now I'm going to talk about TimeWinder. And TimeWinder gives us those interval type timers. So we may think of it with exercise, which I need to do later today. And so doing that interval type training, also working, and so the Pomodoro and being able to, work for 25 minutes. So if we hit play, that's going to start counting down. I'm going to show you, if I do this fast forward, it tells us you then get a short break after those 25 minutes. You get a 5-minute break. Then you work for 25 minutes. Then you get another short break. Oops. Then you work, get a short break, work, you get a long break. So after an hour, you then get a long break, and then going back. So setting that up for some students who may need to have that, you're going to work for this long, take a break. You're going to work for this long, take a break. And so this would be a really good timer for this. It has some, you can see, that are built in, and then at the bottom we can download additional, and then we can also create on our own. So I'm going to hit that plus in the center of the bottom. I can name it. I can say how many times I want it to repeat. I can also have it speak the steps. So by turning that on, we can have it so that it's actually going to say out loud what the steps are if we want that on there, which could be really important for a student to be doing. So that is TimeWinder. We're going to go back out. Now we're going to kind of talk about a little bit of organization, and there's a lot of apps on the matrix that are organization, but I'm just going to talk about a few. So the first one is Google Keep, and you saw this earlier. Google Keep actually is able to sync between many devices. You can have it on your computer as well as on your iPad, your iPhone. So you can put it on one, and then it's going to sync between your devices, so it's always with you. What I really like about Google Keep is you can see at the bottom we can take a note. So if I click on that, I can give my note a title. I can type in the notes. It gives me the last time it was edited. Up here in the top right, I can pin it to the top if I want that. I can set a reminder. So let's say that I need to make sure to get my social studies homework done. I would be able to say a time and a place that a time that I need to get that done. I can repeat it as necessary, or it will also use your location. And so if you pick a place, you're trying to do some shopping, the person needs to actually remember when they are at a certain place to do something. So you could have it remind you at a certain location by letting it track your location. I also like on this, you can see these are kind of squared, kind of almost sticky notes. And so we can change them in the top right corner. So I can change it to a list, or I can change it to more like a sticky note. And so we can also have this, I can have it read aloud. So I added an audio note here.
move the laundry over in 10 minutes.
Okay, so to remember what needed to be done there, so you can add audio as well. You can see here in to pack, you can have what needs to be packed. You can make it as check marks, and as you finish it, you can check those off, and then it can go down there as finished. So lots of great ways to use Google Keep. As you can see also here, when I had touch take a note down here at the bottom, there's also to make the list, to audio record, and then to take pictures and add those. You can add them right from your camera roll as well. The next one is Poplet. And I really like thinking a little differently about Poplet because Poplet can be color-coded. You also have, so right here at the top, you can see that we have what's on my iPad. There are some that are online, and so if you have an account, you can sign in there, and we also have a public, so those that are public and anyone can download those. So looking at, let's look at this one. So you can see that I can color code these. It's very easy. I'm going to click on the box to the bottom, and so by clicking on that, I can move this box around. It also gives me the option, all I have to do is tap that dot and it gives me another box. I can add text in there if I want to add text. I can add the color if I want to change this particular square to a different color. I can add a picture, can open up the library, take a photo, paste an image. Let's click on that. Again, I can write, so if I want to actually draw, I can scribble in there and make a drawing. If I want to get rid of it, I can easily hit the X and I can delete that particular Poplet. And again, very easy to just add any on there. So looking at for an older student who might need a list of a visual schedule. And so they may not need something of a visual schedule that reads it to them, but they may need either pictures or even just text that says, you know, this is the first thing you're doing, and then moving right along, having that in some sort of linear, and so setting that up as well. And I'm saying linear, but these can be moved however you want them, but definitely thinking in a linear may be very helpful for those students. So, and then color coding as well. So that is Poplet. Now we have My Shopping. So for students and individuals who may have lower cognitive ability, they may need a picture shopping list, an easy way to make their list. So you can see that I have made some shopping lists here. Top right, there's a plus. And so I can pick my stores. I can add some stores in if I want. So we're going to go to, let's go to Super Target. I like Super Target. So we have my Super Target lists. I have some Super Target lists. So let's click on this particular list. You can see to the left that we have some items that I need to pick up. I can look through here, and I need some coffee and tea. And what do I want? Oh, I like some mint tea. So I have to just tap on that, and it added it. It just flashed in green right to the bottom. Let's say I want a few items in the coffee and tea aisle. I may need some green tea, and I may need some chamomile tea. So I guess I'm having company and need lots of tea here. I can also add something in. So let's say the particular item that I need isn't here. Using this plus up at the top, I can create my own item. So I can take a picture. So if the specific looks exactly the same as what it is. So maybe a teacup that says mint might not be enough information for someone on their list, but maybe taking a picture of the item. Okay, well, we're done with this item. We need to take a picture and add it, and then they can find that exact item would be helpful for a particular person. We can also add, so if we want to actually add pieces, so we want to change the price. We want to add how many we want, quantity, there it is. We want 3 boxes of this. You can hit click, and you can see that it says 3 in the list. So we have all of those, and then as we find it, I can just check those off, and it moves down to the bottom of the list. So that's a great app for shopping. All right, I'm going to do a few more that are looking at kind of that regulation and behavior. I think I'm not going to show all of these just because I'm kind of looking at time, and I know that there's a lot more that we want to look at. But I want to show you Inside Voice. And so Inside Voice gives us the option of where it is that we're talking and how loud, so to regulate someone to be quieter. And so I can make this circle whatever I want it of how loud the person can be. So I'm going to go right here. And then at the top you see where it says listen. If I click on that, it's recording and listening, not recording, but listening to my voice. And so I was too loud, so it's actually playing an alarm there. And then it's going to do it again. I'm going to move this circle out so we're in the green area and I'm not being too loud. And so that will just be listening to my voice, making sure that I'm regulated inside the volume that I should be. And then if I want to make that circle smaller, if the person needs to be quieter, I can do that. So a pretty simple app. You can change the different sounds. I picked one that I didn't think was kind of, that kids would think was silly, or one that would be more of an annoyance. So that, and you can see where it gets the green and red. So if you didn't want it actually playing aloud, you could have that, the symbol of it turning red, and that it was playing the alarm, turning the volume up again here, so we can go through these. The next one I want to show you is Soch. There we go with our volume. Okay, Soch needs to be in portrait mode. And so you can see there are a few different activities in Soch that we can use. So we could go to the relax, and it can give us some deep breathing. So we can start.
Breathe in. Breathe out.
And it gives us the breathing and tells us how, when to do that. We can also turn the audio on and off with that. I'm going to pause that so you can see that. The shredder is kind of fun, so thinking about negative thoughts. And then you want to type those in, and we're going, I don't know, what do I think, negative morning. And so then we can get our shredder. That's going to go right into the shredder. So we can turn that on. I'm going to hit return again and see if I can get that. At the bottom, there's also a little stress ball. And so we can pump up. It only lets you do one pump at a time. Going to eventually pop. More maybe. There we go. So then at the bottom we can go back home. Different things here. So relate. What did that mean? Looking at first impressions, different strategies for talking through things. We have a voice meter on here for regulation as well, tracking what are some interests. So lots of different ideas on Soch. And then when we look for something younger, Sesame Street Breathe. iPad again.
Little children, big challenges.
Okay, so we're going to hit play.
Hola, Manda from Sesame Street here.
And so I can hit the shoe.
Look, this monster is frowning, and his shoulders are all scrunched up. He's feeling frustrated because he tried and tried to put on his shoes, but he just couldn't do it. Tap on the monster's belly to help him put his hands on it. Tap slowly on his belly. Look, the monster is calming down.
So every time you tap.
Yes, he looks much calmer.
And so we can give some calming.
Activity.
And then different activities that you can go through on here. And it walks the student through what it is that they are doing. All right, I'm going to send it back to Diana, and then after we'll do a few book outs. All right.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to start sharing my screen again with you, and there are so many apps that we want to share but only get to show a few this evening. So I'm going to start reflecting my iPad for you there again. There we go. And the one that I want to pull up for breathing that I like is called Pranayama Breathing. Here it is at the top there. And oftentimes when I show educators or professionals how to use this with their student, because it's very simple. I love the simple, but then they want to take this in the break room and use it themselves, and you can't blame them. Everyone needs this. So I like that it gives the visual with the timer to try and help a person take a deep breath. So if I hit the play button, you can see the inhale. I don't know if you tried to do it with it, but it can take some practice to really take a good deep breath, inhale and exhale, and it's very healthy for all of us. And you can see there are some settings here, so you can set the breaths per minute. You can also set things like that background music if you want to turn it off or make it a chime, or nature, serenity, a few different options there, ambiance. So very calming breathing app there. And then there's also Mood Track. And again, there's so many apps out there for tracking moods and behaviors and really helping a student to keep track of how they may be feeling throughout the day, and talking to their educators about it, or a counselor about it. And this one, again, I like the simple interface. So it's called Mood Track, and you can set it up so that you can see a week at a time or several dates at a time, or just one date, and then you can even do the times of day here. And you can see that once you start to put in a particular mood, if I want to type what my mood is right now, I can just type the letter H and I get word prediction, which is really nice. Or I can put in S. I'm getting word prediction there, maybe A, anxious, or angry. So I can tap there to put that in, and then I can put in my thoughts if I have thoughts. I like to make sure that we have the emoji keyboard as an option for some students, because sometimes they're not very good at saying their thoughts, but it's okay for them to put in a grumpy face or a happy face. But what's something that might have made me angry? Maybe, I don't know, somebody being mean. I'm just going to put, actually I'll just put mad at friend here. And then add this. So now we can rate our mood. So how am I feeling when I'm angry? I'm not really in a good mood when I'm angry. I'm not sure that I'm at my worst, but I'm definitely not good. So you can see here that it's tracking my mood on this grid here of the different times and how I was feeling. And a student can choose when they're doing this, or an individual, whether or not this is going to be a private journal, or if they're going to share it with others, if they can have people following. And they can also choose to share it later. So if they do want to share it with a teacher or a peer or a counselor, they can share it through text message, they can share it through email. And it's really great for them to be able to, again, try and keep track of this in a pretty simple way, and go back and talk about or discuss, or maybe even just be able to express why they were feeling at that time. And we're going to talk about a few apps for social stories and video modeling. Again, we can't show everything, but there's a lot on that matrix for you to check out. The Conover Company used to make some really great apps. They still do make really great videos for social and life skills and safety and things like that. If you had their apps previous to their update and their change, like me, then you might still have some of these to be able to use. Now what they do is, if you go to the Conover Company website, and it's just the Conover Company website itself, it lets you set up with their app a subscription to get to their videos, and you can choose which ones you want depending on the subscription and the type of
to the functional skills system
learner that you have.
Safety signs and words.
So this is an example of safety signs as an option that you could use.
Select the video you want to watch.
And so they have things like starting a conversation and waiting and things like that, and this one happens to be safety signs and words. And so instead of having to create your own videos or maybe even 4 ideas for videos, they have the videos here for you to choose from already depending on the type of subscription that you decide to get. So you can see the different options, and we can play one of them here. How about we'll just do, well, let's do fire alarm.
Fire alarm. This sign says fire alarm. Look for the fire alarm sign when you need to sound an alarm to warn people in the building of danger, such as a fire. Fire alarm.
So the Conover Company has some great options there. There's also Social Norms by the Virtual Speech Academy. So I have hundreds of apps on my iPad, so I use the search feature just so I can get to write what I want to show you quickly if you're wondering what I'm doing there on my iPad. So Social Norms at the top there. So this is one of the many apps available by the Virtual Speech Center. So again, if you search the App Store or the web, internet for Virtual Speech Center, you'll get a list of the apps that they have available, which are just phenomenal. They've been created by SLPs, speech language pathologists, and this one in particular is called Social Norms. If we go into the app, you can see that you can choose from behavior stories, community stories, home stories, hygiene and health, and you can choose more than one at a time. We have manners and safety stories, school stories. So let's just check off a couple. Let's do wearing seatbelts, and then how about we go to going to bed. And now I'm going to choose next on the top and begin.
My mom or dad will drive me to school or to other places, such as the library or the park. When I ride in my car, I will do my best to be safe. When I am in the car, I need to wear seatbelts. The seatbelts will make me safe in case of a car accident. Adults and other children need to wear seatbelts too. It is a rule to wear seatbelts.
And then you can see it would start the next story. I'm going to tap on Finish. In the settings, you can choose to add your own stories, which is great. So you can add your own stories here. You can categorize them so that they're going to show up in one of those categories. And then when you start a story, you can add your own text, you can add your own pictures and audio and so forth, which is really nice. So it comes with their own in there, but it's nice that you can add your own as well. And if you tap on more apps, or again, if you go to their website or search for them in the App Store, you'll see that they really have a lot of great apps by the Virtual Speech Center there, depending on the particular needs for your learner. ModelMe Going Places. I like, again, it has some realistic options for modeling, video modeling, so hairdresser, mall, doctor, etc. So if I pull up the hairdresser one.
I'm getting a haircut. I wait my turn quietly.
So what I did is press the top arrow. So if you don't want any of the distractions around the video, it will keep going on its own. And if you tap in the middle, you can choose to go through it on your own when you want to turn the page on the bottom right. And Stacy is going to show you a few others. So again, going to switch it back over to her real quick.
Okay. Hopefully this will go quickly. All right.
I know, gosh, I'm watching the time as we're going. We have so much still to share.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to show 2 apps for creating your own social stories. So Diana showed you some that are already created. 2 of our favorites are Pictello and Book Creator. And so this has some that are already built in. You can download some as well. Again, I'm clicking on the computer. You can create your own folders of this, and you can add your own story. So I'm at the bottom on the plus, And so you can do wizard mode. Wizard mode walks you through how to very easily title your story, what are
getting A.
all of your steps. Okay, so then we're going to go to the top right where it says next. We want to choose a picture. It's going to ask you for a cover picture of your story. It's going to walk you through. The I want to actually go out. I'm going to go back out and start over and see if I can get out of it. Why are you not letting me out? All right, let's just go next, next, next. All right, done with story. Read story. Okay, so you can see how it walks you through that. The expert mode just has you could add everything on your own. So you might want to start with the wizard and then move on to expert as you get more familiar with it. But we have this fairy wings story, and so we can hit play. You can see at the bottom that you can manually do it, autoplay, or do it as a slideshow. I'm going to do manual.
Fairy wings. Megan is making fairy wings for me.
And so I can move using the arrow, or I could just tap on it. I can also go back home in order to go back to all of the stories that I have on here. I can also export these. I can share them. I can download them, name them, and then we can share those as well with other people who have accounts. All right, Book Creator. Book Creator is becoming more and more popular. You can save it as an ebook, and it is also going to be on as web-based, so that you'll actually be able to use it on a computer as well as on an iPad or iPhone. So you can see that we have a new book, and so if I want to add a new book all the way at the bottom middle, I can put a new book. I can duplicate books. So if I already have a book and I want to just take that kind of as a template and change it, I can do that. You can combine books. So if you have children who have made different parts of the book, or if you're trying to do a social story and you want to add, someone else has one and you want to put two books together, you can. You can import books as well. So moving book, so you've added a page. So up at the top there is a plus. I can add that plus. I can add in photos. I can use my camera. I can use a pen. Can add text or add sound. If I want to add shapes, so I can change my media. There are some shape options, and I could put this, and I can type in what I want my speech bubble to say. I can move that around. So I'm just using this with my finger to be moving that around, and then I can change within that. I could change my font as well. You can also see that I have an audio button. So if I wanted to add some sounds, it gives me an audio button, and I could start recording. We need to walk carefully when we walk to the beach. I'm going to use this recording. So we have the button is right here, and then we can go to the next page, and again, we can add anything we want within here. So now I want to actually play my book. So at the top right, there's a play button, so I can play my book, and now I can click on my audio. We need to walk carefully when we walk to the beach. And so it played our audio for us, and I can just swipe through to go to the beginning and end of my book. Very easy to use Book Creator, very popular app. Now to look at kind of some communication apps. I'm not going to show you all of these. I want to show you ClaroComm Pro. This is for students who may have difficulty communicating but don't need picture cues, just need to have, they're able to write, they're able to read, and so they can actually read all of these sentences. So maybe they want to go to the coffee shop, and maybe they want to order a muffin. So you can see there are some choices here, but it doesn't say a muffin. But it gives you most of that sentence, so they would only need to put in muffin. So I clicked on that. I now need to type in muffin. You can see it gave me some word prediction there. I hit OK.
Can I order a muffin, please?
And so then it actually reads out loud, and I order a muffin, please. I can change this to a female or a male voice. I can change the text size. So all within these settings at the top, you can see there's a lot. I can change the font, the size, color. So it really is able to be customized. I can change the speed as well. I can favorite my phrases that I use often. So if I go every day to get a muffin, I may want to remember that into favorites, and then in favorites it would be there. Also at the bottom, there's a check mark and an X and a bell. So right here, bottom left, this check mark is yes, the X is no, the bell is like an alarm. I don't want to do that because it can be really loud, and I don't know how you're hearing, if anyone has headphones on, so I don't want to show that. But I really like Clarocom Pro for communication for somebody who does not need the picture support. Verbally is another one, similar. It does more word prediction. You can save phrases, but only in the paid version, which is $99. There's a free version, so if it's just someone typing, that can be a really good one. These next two are from Lingraphica, and so I am, depends on which way you are having this, whether you have landscape or, I think you're probably seeing this. Okay. So this gives you, for somebody who may be in the hospital, may be needing to communicate the way that they are feeling if they're sick. So we can, I want a blanket. I know that when I'm sick, that's probably the first thing I want. So I can click on,
I want a blanket.
And I can have that read. So it gives the picture support, the sentence support, the audio, so that the person can hear them. So this is the one that would be ICU, and then there's just also a pain scale. There's lots of other apps in this group of apps that are very different, but I could say my pain level.
Severe pain.
As well, which can be really important to make sure that someone is able to communicate that to those around. All right. We talked about, I showed you my Play Home. There's a whole group of apps. There's My Play School as well. You saw, I showed you My Play Home when I did guided access. You can actually get these together. So if you have them all on your device, you can actually have the people go from the house to the school. There's a hospital as well, and they can go through all of those. Diana, do you want to show the last few you wanted to?
Sure, absolutely. No, we're running way short on time for everything that we wanted to squeeze in this evening, but if you want to stop sharing, and there we go, and I will pull mine up again and share my screen. There we go. Get over to my iPad here. Conversation Builder. There's quite a few conversation builders. Conversation Builder Teen is one of them. There's for younger kids and for older adults as well.
Conversation Builder.
So you can see that you can choose from categories like bullying, summer, sports, sarcasm. That can be really great. You can choose more than one player.
Choose the best way to start this conversation.
And you can hear these out loud first by tapping.
You're a good hitter. Is softball your favorite sport? Hey, nice hit out there.
That is an unusual question to ask at the start of a conversation. Try again.
So I chose the middle one first.
It is not the best way to start this conversation. Try complimenting your peer about something they just did.
I'm going to do the last one.
That's a good choice. Now let's record it.
And then the student would record their voice, and they would go through all of the situations and conversations, record their voice, and then play the entire conversation at the end after they've practiced. There's a few others like Between the Lines and Assistive Express that we really like. What I'm actually going to do is stop sharing my iPad just because we didn't really get to Google Chrome that much, but I know a lot of schools are going Google and using Google, so I do want to make you aware of the Google Chrome web store if you're not already. I am in the Google Chrome browser. It looks like a little beach ball at the bottom of my screen here. And when I open up a new window, just so you know, you do have to have the Google Chrome browser to get to the App Store. The icon on my screen is the top left. It looks like a little waffle or square of mini squares. It's also down on the bottom of my screen. It looks like a launcher. So a lot of schools are using Chromebooks, and Google Chrome is on all of those Chromebooks. It's what they run. But I'm on a typical laptop, so if you have a Windows laptop or a Mac desktop or laptop, you can certainly have the Google Chrome browser. It's free. And then you're going to be able to get to the Chrome Web Store. Looks like a little beach ball in the beach bag. You can see I have several apps downloaded. There's a lot of great ones here. There's timers, progress bar timers, visual timers that look like the time timer. There's great mind mapping and brainstorming apps, scheduling and reminders. MindOmo is one example. There's things here for sight words, for math support. And I do highly recommend if you're going to, the 99% of them, 98% of them are free. Or if it's a subscription, it will tell you what the cost is and if you can have it for 30 days for free. But the majority of them that we provide training on are free. So this is just an example of a mind mapping one. If you don't happen to find the Google Chrome Web Store icon, as long as you are in the Chrome browser, you can just do a search for Chrome Web Store. And when you get there, you'll get to the same Chrome Web Store as this little icon here. And again, just search by feature, what you want the student to be able to do, or topic or subject. So again, mind mapping and brainstorming, scheduling and reminders, timers, things like that. There's a lot there available for free, and I know we're over time now, so I'm actually going to stop sharing so that Anna can finish this up. And do be sure to fill out your evaluation forms if you want your certificate of participation. And certainly thank you for joining us this afternoon. You can type any last-minute questions in that chat.
Can I just say one more thing? We were going to talk a little bit about wearables. There's a lot of resources at the end of the matrix, and then I just added a couple about the time timer watch and the ditto reminders. So just to look at those links as well.
Absolutely. Those wearables are a phenomenal resource.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We hope that was an informative webinar for you. We hope to see you again at future webinars.